So it's finally over. What has been the most legendary series of my life is over. And I know this may sound like a cliche to describe the series that way, but it, at least for me, it's true. This series has been my Seinfeld or my Friends, that show that was at the top of its game. And did it go out on the top of its game? I believe so. Um, would I say it's still the funniest show on TV? No. Don't get me wrong, it was still very funny, but it was still the best comedy to me. It had heart. It was always there, and it still got me to sit there and wait every Monday for it to come on. If you haven't seen the finale yet of How I Met Your Mother, do yourself a favor and go watch it. You can come back after. You can't. Just be sure to watch the finale, assuming you are a fan of the show. Full spoilers from here on out. So we start off at the wedding reception, and Barney wants to play Have You Met Ted one more time. But instead, Ted decides that, no, he's not going to. He's got to go catch his train to Chicago. And this is important, and it's a fact we'll get back to later. But then he has these heartfelt goodbyes with each individual member of the group, and kind of brings tears to your eyes. It's sad. And then next we see he's at the train station, and this old lady's there, and he's trying to convince him, hey, you should go back and talk to that girl. Trying to convince him to believe in fate again. Again, we'll get back to this scene because after this scene, we start jumping through time. The first thing we see is directly the next day, and the group finds out, hey, he's still in New York because he found this girl, and well, he is in love with her, and Lily acknowledges that, yeah, he's in love, but it's different than before. Alright, next we see Ted sitting there planning the wedding, and the mother walks in, and she's pregnant with their kid, so they put off the wedding. And then the next scene we see, it's about 3 years after the wedding, and we find out that Barney and Robin got divorced. It's sad, but when you think about it, that is something that was very possible of happening. But the group still decides that, hey, for the big moments, we'll be there. Next, we slowly see Robin follow out and get away from the group. It's too tough for her to stay around her ex-husband and Ted. So she's not there very often. We see Barney kinda go back to his old ways. We'll get back to that later as well. And then we see Marshall get his judgeship. Good for him. We see Barney got a girl pregnant, and we see him have his kid, and that officially changes his life for a girl forever. And then right before we see Ted and Stacy, that's the mom's name, get married, we see Robin reconcile with the group. She's there for this big moment, even though she did miss a few. Then after that, we get a beautiful speech by Ted about love, in Ted's voice, not Bob Saget's, to his kids. And we find out that the mom has died. It's sad. That was kind of teared me up. But then in this 10-minute span, it went from making me feel really sad into Ted finally winding up with Robin with his kids okay. And that made me sad in another way, the happy kind of tears. And it's great that this show could do that. So that's what happened in this finale. If I had to compare this to any other one, I would compare it to The Dark Knight Rises. The Dark Knight Rises, much like this, was something that had to live up to something so great that came before it. And though it didn't end necessarily the way we thought it would, it was the perfect ending for what we needed. Not perfect, but the perfect ending. Sure, this episode did feel a bit rushed, and I would love to spend more time with the mother and the kids acting. You could just tell that they were talking more to the camera. It was filmed 7 years ago, no fault to their own. So yes, there were problems with this, but it still gave us a very fitting and realistic ending for what this series in general was. Yes, Barney and Robin loved each other, but that shows that's not always enough, and it's really hard to see Robin file out from the group because it hurt everyone. And yeah, it did kind of seem a bit pointless for Barney to go back to his old ways, but really wasn't him going back to his old ways, at least not for the same reasons before. He was doing that just because that's what he wanted to do. Now he did that, and it's very emotional, the scene where he describes this. He's doing it because if it didn't work out with Robin, then who's it going to work out with? He doesn't believe in love even less than he did before, and he's just doing what he can to not get hurt anymore. So that actually is very true and shows that his character did change through all this. And as for Ted and the mother, it's kind of assumed that one of them had to be dying, because otherwise why would Ted be telling this story? I had personally theorized that it'd be Ted that was giving this last speech, but with the mother dying, this was the best way they could go. And Ted going back to Robin, it doesn't take away from the importance of the mother, it adds to it. I mean, when we see Ted at the train station, it's the one who no longer believed in destiny or fate, but through the 10 years that he got to spend with his mother, longer by the entire series, mind you, he realized, fate and destiny is real for him. That love is still out there, so the fact that it changed Ted for the better shows that the mother was very important to the story and to his life. I mean, to reference Batman one more time, this ending wasn't the one we needed, but it was the one we deserved. All we needed from the ending was for Ted to end his story by saying, "And that's how I met your mother." And don't get me wrong, when this scene actually occurred, it was very touching and I got chills, but that's not what the story was about anymore. I mean, sure, if this would have ended season 4 or 5, yeah, that's what I wanted from this show. But that's not what the show was about. Sure, it was in this framework of one man trying to find love in New York, but it became about a realistic take on a group of friends living through and for love. Through Marshall and Lily, we learned that, hey, even perfect relationships have real struggles. Through Barney and Robin, we learned love's not always enough. From Ted, we learned to never give up on love. And from the mother, especially with her dying, we learned that even as Ted says, you have to love someone as much as you can for as long as you can, even if that's a short amount of time. So when Ted brings that blue horn to Robin at the end of the series, when Ted brings it full circle in his life, it's not Ted saying, hey, my life with your mother wasn't important, or that I said that he loved Robin more. It's saying that love goes on. And to me, that's the perfect ending for what this series was all about. And if you disagree with me, if you hated this ending, don't let that take away from the show for you. Don't let its legacy be defined by one episode that you didn't like. This episode was just a bow that tied off on top of something that was great. Maybe you didn't like the bow, but still like the present. And before I go, I just want to thank anyone who had ever worked, writed, starred in the show. If you're watching this, and I hope you are, thank you for being part of a show that really impacted my life. I loved the last episode. I really, really loved the whole series. I'll just show it, hopefully, to my kids. Keep it around as long as I can. It's been a great ride. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching.